Welcome back, everybody, to the Pittsburgh Pirates franchise here on MLB The Show 20. As today, we have the off-season entering season number 5 of the series. Last episode, we had Game 6 of a World Series, and unfortunately, our Pirates took the L to the Cleveland Indians in that game 5-1, as the Indians would end up beating us in the World Series in 6 games to win their first World Series championship in 75 years. So, shout out to Cleveland. I mean, the Indians have not won anything for a long time, and they finally get the championship that this team deserves. This was a hard-fought game, a very hard-fought series, but our offense just never got clicking in the World Series, and to be fair, neither did theirs. This was a very pitching-dominated World Series from both teams, but we just happened to have a rough 7th inning. Our two best relievers in the postseason, Raisel Iglesias and Wander Suero, were the ones who allowed those 4 runs in the 7th inning. Iglesias got the loss, and Suero allowed 3 of those 4 runs, so it's unfortunate to see their seasons end like that, considering how good both of them were in the regular season and how good both of them were in the postseason. But, I mean, we certainly gave it our all, a phenomenal fight from our Pirates. But back to the drawing board as we go to the offseason. So Francisco Mejia has officially won playoff MVP, which is well-deserved. He's been the best player on our team in this postseason. Josh Bell finishes 2nd, I agree with that. And Pablo Cairo finishes 3rd, I agree with that as well. I think this is the correct order. I think you could have made a case for Adonis Medina being in that running, but I think they made the right order. Francisco Lindor wins playoff and World Series MVP for the Indians. I would have given World Series MVP to Brandon Lau, personally. Lau struggled the first 3 games when the Indians started off down 2-1. Then Cleveland won their final 3 games, and Brandon Lau was insane. So, I mean, Lindor was great too, so I'm not going to argue it. So before we get to the offseason, I want to do a quick season recap now that we can look at the regular season stats. Starting with the starting pitching, I mean, Jameson Taillon was very good. Jordan Yamamoto was good. Adonis Medina, a player who I didn't even know was going to make the roster at the start of the year, was dominant. Santiago Osuna as well was great, but unfortunately, Julio Urias and Mitch Keller were both very disappointing. Keller is up for arbitration this offseason, and I do plan on paying him, and I do believe he will start next season in the big leagues, but I mean, he was sent down, I think, mid-July to AAA. He didn't even pitch that well in AAA and was not on the postseason roster. Julio Urias is an unrestricted free agent this offseason, and spoiler alert, I have no reason to bring him back, so he will be leaving. We do have some interesting players in the farm system who could enter the rotation next year, specifically Patrick Magana, our only top 50 prospect. Looking at the bullpen, Wander Suero and Emmanuel Clase were both very good. Pedro Baez did not quite live up to expectations, but we only signed him to a 1-year deal. He probably will not be back on the team next year. And then the rest of the relievers who are listed as closers. Obviously, Ken Giles was a little bit disappointing in comparison to last year. He is under contract for another season. I think he is an interesting player we could look to move. I don't plan on trading him, but I mean, he is making $10 million, and we do have relievers who have the capability to be closers. Raisel Iglesias was great this year. Will Smith was a little bit disappointing. He does have a team option, so we will assess that. And then Michael Givens was pretty mediocre. Maybe we'll bring him back. Maybe we won't. So we do have a number of relievers who are free agents, like Givens, like Will Smith, like Pedro Baez. So our bullpen could look quite different next year. At catcher, Francisco Mejia was awesome. Unfortunately, his contract is up after next year, and he will be a free agent. So we have 1 more year of team control on Francisco Mejia before we will likely have to pay him the big bucks. Josh Bell and Benny Lane were both great. Not too much to talk about with them because they were both excellent. Wander Franco is the main second baseman. He had a great rookie year. Benny Lane mostly played third base, and then O'Neal Cruz at shortstop had a really good season. I don't think the infield is going to look too much different. All 4 guys, Bell, Franco, Cruz, and Lane, are under contract, and they have all been really good. Tony Kemp is a free agent. Maybe we bring him back, maybe we don't. Brian Hayes and Nico Goodrum both had solid seasons as depth guys, so I don't really think we need Tony Kemp that much. In the outfield, Andrew McCutchen was not phenomenal off the bench. He is under contract this year, so he will be back. Brian Reynolds was the weak link in the lineup, and, I mean, he wasn't bad this year. I think that more shows how good the lineup was, but Brian Reynolds did not quite live up to expectations, and then Travis Swaggerty was solid off the bench. In right, Dylan Carlson certainly took a step back from last year. He also was very bad in the playoffs. And then Pablo Cairo had an awesome rookie year. So Cairo is, I think, the only safe player in the outfield right now. Carlson should be fine, but I mean, he did not live up to expectations this year, and neither did Brian Reynolds. So maybe we look at acquiring an outfield bat in the offseason. Certainly something to consider, but the lineup in the starting rotation probably won't change too much. Maybe we'll make a couple small moves there, but I think the big changes will be in the bullpen. Maybe we add another starter, maybe we add another bat. The first stage of the offseason is one of the sadder stages, that being retirements. We do not have anybody in our organization retiring, so that's good news. We don't have many super old or super bad players, so it doesn't really surprise me that nobody retired. There are a few interesting players in here, a few former Pirates like Mark Melancon, Charlie Morton. They were both solid players on the Pirates a number of seasons before the series started, so we obviously did not pitch with either of them, but they had both solid careers. I recognize a few of our former minor leaguers down here, but no Hall of Famers, no real long-time superstars. I don't think anybody whose name we passed deserves to be a Hall of Famer, although there were good players for sure. So now let's get to the nitty-gritty stuff. Starting with the staff, and we need a whole new staff. The only coach under contract is manager Ike Braun, and for the most part, we brought all of our coaches back. However, we hired Manny Ramirez to be our hitting coach. Why? Because, well, why not? Manny Ramirez was a slugger with the Boston Red Sox pretty much 20 years ago at this point. And I figured, I mean, he's in here. I don't know if this is the actual Manny Ramirez because he does not have a face scan, but his name is Manny Ramirez. I see the +3 power, so we're going to pretend this is the actual Manny Ramirez and say he is the hitting coach of our Pittsburgh Pirates. So, now on to exclusive negotiations. These are the players who will be free agents if we elect not to re-sign them. For the most part, there are a lot of pitchers in here, and there aren't a whole lot of guys in here who I really want to bring back. We do have an interesting decision with Will Smith. He is a team option for this year, worth, I believe, around $5 million, and we would elect to decline it. Will Smith was not great this season. He wasn't terrible, and I think he'll still get a decent contract from somebody. However, I don't really want to pay him $5.2 million when we can use that money elsewhere. We have a lot of relievers in the organization I like, so no need to bring him back. And out of all the players in here, the only one who I want to bring back is Raisel Iglesias. We signed him to a one-year contract in the offseason last year, and he had a really good season for us. A sub-3 ERA, a sub-1.25 whip. He was really good in the postseason. Yes, he did get the loss in the clinching World Series game, but he's a player I absolutely want to bring back. He was excellent in the middle of our bullpen last year, and I believe that he will likely have a similar role this year. So even though he is 34 years old, he's still a very good player and not a guy who I want to let go of. So he's going to get a one-year contract worth $2.7 million. I want to say that's the exact same contract we signed him to last offseason. So, I mean, he's pretty much getting the same stuff. He would end up accepting that. Now we are officially in the free agency one stage of the offseason. There are some very big name free agents, but we will get to them in a second. First off, I do want to add a couple players to the 40-man roster. Outfielder Alexander Canario and starting pitcher Quinn Priester. I do not want to lose them in the Rule 5 draft. I think they are too good of assets. Now let's get to arbitration. We have 10 players eligible, and we would offer it to 9. Everybody here would get arbitration except for Willians Astudillo. I thought he asked for a little bit too much, and I didn't think it was worth it. We're not going to offer any of these guys contract extensions. I did think about it, though, for Francisco Mejia, and I kind of wish I did offer him that now, but we decided not to, and we would just offer him arbitration instead. Now on to the contracts renewable stage. These are for guys who have less than 3 years of MLB service, and we would offer pretty much everybody in the organization a tendered contract. I think we offered it to all of the eligible major leaguers, and we offered it to pretty much all the minor league prospects except for a few guys who I just really didn't want, which was only a couple of players, so pretty much everybody here would be brought back. Most of these guys are making $80,000, $70,000 a year if they are minor leaguers. The major leaguers are making a couple million per season, not much more than that. So Now that we've got the boring stuff out of the way, if you will, it's now time to talk about free agency. Obviously, the Pirates are a team that does not have the highest budget. They're not as known as a team who always spends a whole ton of money. Currently, we have $63 million wrapped up in player salaries. This does include the Raisel Iglesias extension. It does not include arbitration or tendered contracts. So even though we have a lot of money to spend, it's kind of like when you get a lot of money and then have to pay a bunch of taxes. Our taxes in this scenario are the arbitration and tendered contracts. So when those are added in there, I think it would add up to a little bit over $100 million. So we only have so much to spend, but there are a few moves I would like to make in free agency, and I am willing to spend the big bucks. So there are some really good players in this year's free agency. Matt Chapman, Blake Snell, Luke Giolito, Jack Flaherty, Tyler Glasnow, Cody Bellinger, Shohei Ohtani, Paul Goldschmidt, Yoan Moncada. There are some phenomenal players in here who are asking for a lot of money and are well worth a lot of money. So I think the biggest thing we want to look for right now is the bullpen, and a player who stood out for me is Jose Alvarado. Alvarado is a 28-year-old left-hander who throws absolute gas, a strikeout machine. He just had a really good season last year with the Rays, finished with an ERA of 1.17 and a WHIP of 1.07. Josh Hader was here in free agency, and I thought about him, but Alvarado is cheaper and arguably better, so we're going to offer him a 2-year contract for $15 million, which is $7.5 million a season. I wanted to add another bench bat. It does not look like Tony Kemp will be returning, so we're going to offer Cesar Hernandez. Hernandez was on the Indians this past season. Obviously, his team beat us in the World Series, but we're not going to let that grudge stop us from offering him a contract. We're going to go back to the bullpen here, taking a look at 29-year-old righty Victor Arano. Arano has spent his past 3.5 seasons with the Chicago White Sox, and throughout the 4 seasons that this franchise has lasted so far, he's been very consistent for the most part, and I think he can be a really good middle reliever guy. He's not someone who's going to make a ton of money, and he's not going to be one of the big-name relievers on our team, but I think he can be a good replacement for a guy like Michael Givens, who was previously one of the middle relievers. So I wanted to offer a starting pitcher, and there are a lot of good choices. Snell, Flaherty, Giolito, Glasnow, Ohtani, Sale. I mean, there are some aces in here, and I really thought about getting one of them, but I just don't think we have the money for it. So I've decided to scroll down a little bit and go for a far cheaper option who isn't that much worse, that being Joey Lucchesi. Lucchesi has spent his 6-year career so far with the San Diego Padres. He is a 30-year-old left-handed starter, and he's been very consistent throughout the course of this franchise. His WHIP has always been between 1.18 and 1.21 in the 4 seasons that this series has gone on. That just shows you that he is extremely consistent, and I think he can be a really good number 2 or number 3 guy in our rotation. We don't have any lefty starters now that Julio Urias is gone, so that's another reason to get a guy like Lucchesi. The Padres want him back. They are offering him a 3-year deal worth around $30 million. So our contract will be 2 years, a little bit over $21 million, with a player option for the second season. So he can sign the longer contract with the Padres or take the shorter deal with us where he is making more money per season and has more financial flexibility because he can accept or decline the option for next season. So these are the 4 players we're going to offer here in this first stage: Jose Alvarado, Joey Lucchesi, Victor Arano, and Cesar Hernandez. Currently, nobody else is offering any of these players except for the Padres going after Joey Lucchesi. And surprisingly, Lucchesi was the first one to make his decision. He has decided to sign the 2-year contract with the Pittsburgh Pirates. So Joey Lucchesi is now a member of the squad. As we go through free agency, I do want to take a look at where some of the other big-name players are going. There obviously are a lot of big names in this offseason, but before we do that, the Twins are now interested in Jose Alvarado. We are still in first place for him. However, I want to up the offer just in case because I really want Alvarado. I don't want him to slip by. So instead of 2 years, $15 million, we will now make it 2 years, $17 million. So he will get an additional $1 million per season, and he would sign the contract. Jose Alvarado has now been added to the bullpen. We have just added a lefty starter and a lefty reliever, which is a very big deal because I've been wanting to add more lefties to the organization. So a very good start so far to our free agency period. We got the two big fish that we wanted, and the Brewers decide to sign Lucas Giolito. So our biggest division rivals, who finished one game behind us last year, proceed to add one of the top pitchers in baseball. Obviously, this is a very big deal for us. They signed Noah Syndergaard a couple years ago. So now they have a 1-2 punch of Lucas Giolito and Noah Syndergaard. That is scary, and I am not happy that Giolito is a Brewer. Cody Bellinger is now a Washington National. Obviously, we played the Nationals in the NLCS last year, so they are a threat to our World Series run, and they add one of the top players in the game, so that's a very big deal. The Rays sign Jack Flaherty. They take him out of our division. I don't think they're going to get back Blake Snell or Tyler Glasnow, so they're going to replace two aces with one. Shohei Ohtani signs a 7-year contract with the Toronto Blue Jays as the pitchers are flying off the board, and Blake Snell signs a 9-year contract with the Milwaukee Brewers. The Brewers are going all in, and they now have a starting rotation that features Blake Snell, Lucas Giolito, and Noah Syndergaard at the top. I do not like this at all. Brandon Woodruff would be the ace for most teams. He is their number 4 reliever. Adrian Hauser is an 87 overall. He does not make the cut as one of their top 5 guys. I don't even think the Orioles have a pitcher higher than a 77 overall. The Brewers are hogging all of the talent. I don't know where they got all of this money from. Julio Urias will be returning to Los Angeles, but he signs with the Angels. 5 years, $64 million. I certainly would not have been willing to pay him that contract, so adios, amigo. Luke Weaver signs a 6-year deal with the Boston Red Sox. I thought about Weaver, but I chose Lucchesi instead because he is cheaper, but Luke Weaver was a very tempting option for me. I almost pulled the trigger on him. The Oakland Athletics, a team known for not being big spenders, have signed Tyler Glasnow to a 7-year, $140 million deal. They also re-signed Matt Chapman to a very large contract. So that would bring us to the end of free agency 1. There are still some very good players in here. And an interesting name I came across was Miguel Andujar. Nobody is offering him for some odd reason, and we don't really need him, but if no one else is going to get him, why not us? Andujar has been great the past few seasons with the Yankees. Last year in OPS above 900, the year before 39 home runs, 103 RBIs. He is a hitting machine. So I said, screw it. Why not go after him? We're going to offer a 3-year contract worth $36 million with a club option for the 3rd season. The plan would be, if we sign Andujar, he plays 3rd, Benny Ling plays 1st, and Josh Bell moves to the outfield. So Josh Hader does leave Milwaukee, which is good news, but he signs with the Nationals, which is not good news. The Yankees signed Matt Olson, so I guess the A's are letting him go. They chose Tyler Glasnow over him, essentially, and the Yankees at a big-time bat. What's new? The Angels signed former Pirate Joe Musgrove. He will stay in the AL West. So Musgrove and Julio Urias will reunite in the Angels rotation, who is obviously a very talented unit. They have a few other really good players in there as well. So the Angels have something really nice building. Rhys Hoskins is going to sign with the Cincinnati Reds for a 4-year deal. So Rhys Hoskins is now in our division. This is a pretty big deal. Reds add a potential big-time bat in the middle of their lineup for fairly cheap, too. That's a very team-friendly contract, in my opinion. Only about $10.5 million a season for Hoskins. That's really a value for the Reds. Anthony Rizzo will be leaving our division. He signs a 1-year contract with the Minnesota Twins. I'm surprised he didn't look for a multi-year deal, but I guess nobody wanted to offer him one. He is 34, but he's also still really good. Caleb Smith will be signed with the Tampa Bay Rays. I thought about him as a lefty starter, but opted for Lucchesi instead. The Red Sox swipe away Jordan Montgomery from the Yankees. I think Yankee fans probably want his head cut off since he went from the Yankees to the Red Sox. Chris Sale signs with the Angels. So the Angels have now added Chris Sale, Joe Musgrove, and Julio Urias in this offseason alone. They are clearly trying to build a contender there down in LA. Harrison Bader will be leaving our division. He signs with the Minnesota Twins on a 4-year deal. Jorge Polanco will also be leaving our division. He was with the Brewers last year, so it is good news that we don't have to worry about him anymore. He signs with the Houston Astros, and he will replace Carlos Correa, who signed with the Marlins a couple off seasons ago. So this is about 2 weeks after we offered Miguel Andujar his contract. He is still not accepted, and the White Sox are now in first place. So I'm going to up the offer for him because I really want him. Instead of 3 years, 36, it'll now be 3 years, 38 mil, and instead of a club option, we are giving him a player option, and he would immediately accept that. I did not go into this offseason expecting to sign a guy like Miguel Andujar, but I was presented the opportunity, and I couldn't really pass it up. So Miguel Andujar is now a Pittsburgh Pirate. We add a really, really good bat to the lineup, and now that kind of creates a logjam with our lineup. I'll get to that in a second. Also, by the way, Cesar Hernandez and Victor Arano both accepted their contracts with us. So the 5 players we have offered in free agency have accepted our deals, which is very good. Our budget is now up to $121 million, and this still does not include arbitration or renewable contracts. So we spent over $50 million per season in the free agency, which is a lot of money. So, as I mentioned earlier, there is now a little bit of a logjam. With Josh Bell moving to the outfield, we now have 4 starting outfielders and only 3 outfield spots. Josh Bell is obviously going to start. Pablo Cairo is obviously going to start. So now we got to talk about Brian Reynolds and Dylan Carlson. Reynolds obviously took a step down this season. His potential is going down. He's kind of regressing. His contact against lefties went down -11 throughout the span of the season. That's not particularly ideal. Reynolds was not bad this season, and he is still certainly a starting caliber outfielder. However, he is the worst of our starters from last year. His contract is going to be up after next season, so I don't think we would get that much value for him, but maybe we'd get a little bit of something. I also want to talk about Dylan Carlson. He is only 25 years old. He has 8 potential, and I do not want to trade Dylan Carlson right now, but he's not untouchable, per se. Carlson took a step down this past season, and he really struggled in the postseason. He has a lot more trade value than Brian Reynolds, and we could get a ton for Dylan Carlson. But as I said, I do not want to trade him right now. If I were to trade one, I'd rather trade Reynolds, but we'll cross that boat when we get to it. Got some more free agent signings. Will Smith signs a 3-year deal with the White Sox, so our former player will be headed to the Windy City. Scott Kingery will sign with the Giants on a 3-year deal worth around $43 million. And they're going to add another middle infielder, signing DJ LeMahieu away from the Yankees. So, middle of their infield is now added LeMahieu and Scott Kingery. So, on to the Rule 5 draft. I did not anticipate on drafting anybody here. However, we do need a backup catcher, and Juan Cedeno really intrigues me. Cedeno is from the Brewers organization. Any chance we can get to hurt the Brewers, I'm going to take, because they are our biggest threat in the division. They've signed Lucas Giolito and Blake Snell in the offseason, so any chance I can get to make them worse, I will do that, and we will skip all of our remaining selections here in the Rule 5 draft. So Juan Cedeno must stay on the Major League roster this entire upcoming season unless we cut him or trade him. So the Reds have traded away Rhys Hoskins to the Athletics, who they just signed about 5 minutes ago. Typical MLB The Show. Adalberto Mondesi to the Mariners. Brandon Belt, who was on the Nationals last year, he signs with the Cardinals, so he's now in our division. Gio Urshela signs with the Chicago White Sox. Anthony Rizzo, who the Twins just signed, they are trading him to the Yankees for Seth Lugo. So the Yankees have now added Anthony Rizzo and Matt Olson here in the offseason. So now it is time for arbitration hearings, and unfortunately the panel mostly sided with the players, which is not good for us. The panel did side with us for Mitch Keller, along with Wander Suero, and I believe Richard Rodriguez. But other than that, the panel sided with the players, so those guys are now all under contracts. All of the players we offered in tendered contracts are all had their deals accepted as well, so we don't have to worry about that anymore. But I have found a trade for Bryan Reynolds. Reynolds has been with the team since the start of the series. He's one of the few players who was on the roster in Season 1 who is still here. We will be trading him to the LA Dodgers. The Dodgers are not that good in the outfield right now. They did just lose Cody Bellinger, and Reynolds would step right in as a starter. We are going to acquire 26-year-old left-handed reliever Caleb Ferguson. I wanted to add another piece to the bullpen, and Ferguson is a really good piece. I wanted one more lefty along with Jose Alvarado, and obviously Ferguson is a lefty. We're also going to be acquiring relief pitching prospect Omar Mosquera, who is 23 years old, 72 overall with B potential. The Dodgers would agree to that trade, so we now have Caleb Ferguson on the team, and Bryan Reynolds is officially a Los Angeles Dodger. After that trade, we have now gone up to $158 million in player salaries this season. We spent close to $100 million this offseason per year, which is a lot of money. Now, obviously, the Pirates don't traditionally spend a lot, but we are going for a World Series this season. We signed a bunch of big-name guys, and we're gunning for it. So, entering the season, we are the 5th-ranked team. We have number 1 contact, we're 3rd in power and 4th in pitching. The main things I look for when I build my teams is contact, power, and pitching. We're 10th in speed. I don't really know how that happened, but I'm not complaining. And we're dead last in defense. I figured we wouldn't be high in defense, but I also didn't think we'd be dead last. Anyway, that'll end the episode. I don't think I'm going to stream spring training this year unless everybody wants it. If that's the case, then I guess I will stream it. But I want to get right into season number 5. I hope everybody is excited for a new season of Pirates baseball because I know I am. Have a good one. Peace.